Good morning, this is Todd Hubbs, agricultural economist at the University of Illinois. Today I'm talking about my weekly outlook from February 18, 2019, corn acreage in 2019. The number of acres of corn to be planted this year is going to be a key factor in determining where corn prices go. I think there's a general consensus among most market observers that corn acres is going up. And this week I decided to try to figure out what the market is pricing corn acreage at in the 2019-20 marketing year, and then look at some of the factors that might make that occur or not occur as we move toward the March Prospective Plannings Report on March 29th. When we talk about the number of corn and soybean acres in the country, I've produced this little graph here showing principal crop acreage. Now that includes some acreage like hay that only has harvested acreage in it, and then corn and soybean planted acreage, and those are on the left-hand axis, and on the right-hand axis I'm saying the percent of corn and soybean acreage relative to principal crop acreage. And since the start of the RFS, we've seen the corn and soybean acreage increase dramatically. Part of that's the RFS, part of that's Chinese imports of soybeans that's driven this dynamic forward. And last year we saw it come down a little bit to about 56% of principal crop acreage. When we think about 2019, the idea of how many principal crop acreage there's going to be, we could see that come back a little bit. There's been a lot of speculation on increased spring wheat acreage. We saw lower winter wheat seedings with the winter wheat seedings report. We hear higher cotton acreage. Overall, if we're going to plant, we're going to look at probably more corn and soybean acreage, maybe maintaining that 56%. If we thought principal crop acreage stayed the same, it comes down to how much of the corn and soybean acres is going to be corn and how much are going to be soybeans. So if we think corn and soybean acreage will be relatively steady this year, we need to sort of figure out what's the share of each going to be, and I'm focusing on corn acreage today. What you're seeing in this graph is the change in corn planted acreage from the previous year in millions of acres relative to the average harvest futures price soybean to corn ratio in January and February of a given year. When we look at the harvest soybean to corn futures price ratio this year, it's been about 2.37. There's a definite signal in this graph just from 2006 through 2018. If you're above 2.4 in that ratio, less corn acreage. If you're below 2.3, more corn acreage. And we're sort of sitting right in that middle zone. And we've seen problems with field work in large parts of the Corn Belt this fall. We've seen fertilizer and other input costs go up on corn. So the idea that we're going to see a massive increase in corn acreage, which is held by most market observers, it could happen. But under the current price structure, we might not see the kind of corn acreage we think we're going to see. I went through and used the 2019-2020 futures prices and the average cash price calculated by the USDA for each month to try to calculate what the corn price is expected in 2019-20, and I got $3.81 per bushel. Now I sort of think around an 11% stocks to use ratio in 2019-20 would give us $3.81. If we thought consumption was constant at 14.8 billion bushels from this marketing year to the next, that would put corn acreage around 91.7 million acres is what the market's priced in, at a 174.6 yield nationally for corn. Now if you thought the yield would be higher, that would bring acreage down a little bit. But overall, when you think about it, there's not a lot of weather premium currently priced in the market on the 2019 crop. There's also not a lot of idea that corn acreage is going to be much lower than that. And I don't think there's a lot priced in with the trade deal. If we do get a trade deal, it's just as bullish for corn when you think about grain, ethanol, and distillers grains exports as it may be for soybeans this marketing year and the next. So I think there's an upside for corn prices if we see any of these factors come into play. But right now that 2.37 soybean to corn price ratio on the harvest prices feels a little bit too high if we expect to get a lot more corn acreage in 2019. On March 29th, we're going to get the March Prospective Plannings Report, which is going to give us the first indication of the spring crop acreage in 2019. Right now we're looking at higher corn acreage, and a lot of people expect that. But under the current price scenario, when we break down soybeans and corn, there's not a real strong market signal for increased corn acreage. It'll be interesting to see what the March Prospective Plantings Report says, and at this point I wouldn't be surprised at any of the numbers that might come out of it. I'd like to thank you for your time. You can find my weekly outlook and daily analysis of issues related to Corn Belt farm economics at farm.daily.illinois.edu. I look forward to seeing you around the state of Illinois.